Thank you for being with us. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this talk named Why Should We Talk About Gender Equity? As part of the 2021 Language and Culture Fest. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome Ms. Paola Cabero from Peace Corps. Paola Cabero is responsible for the Peace Corps Response Program. She started working in Peace Corps Mexico in 2014. Among her responsibilities, Ms. Cabero designs and facilitates training courses about gender equity, intercultural competencies, diversity and inclusion addressed to Peace Corps staff and volunteers. She worked for more than 10 years for non-governmental organizations in Mexico and in the USA, supporting social programs for physically challenged people and vulnerable women and girls. She holds an MA in philanthropy and non-governmental organization management from Indiana University and a BA in social rehabilitation from Assumption College in Massachusetts. Ms. Cabero, thank you for being with us.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Your microphone, yes.
Yes,
now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by thanking everyone joining us this afternoon to talk about the importance and the need to talk about gender equality. I thank the Language Center at the Autonomous University of the State of Hidalgo for inviting Peace Corps to participate in the Language and Culture Fest. And finally, I extend my gratitude to Diana Hernandez, Director of Language Center, Isabel Gutierrez, and Laura Lopez for facilitating this space. Why should we talk about gender equality and why should we care? Do any of you know who she is? Please feel free to type in the chat box your responses if you know who this person is. And Laura, could you read some of the responses?
Yes, I think still we don't have any, but I know she's an Oscar winner.
Yes, correct. Okay, no problem. Yes, that is correct. She's Chloe Zhao, this year's winner of the Oscar for Best Director. What makes it of particular interest, or why I'm bringing up Chloe, is that she is the second female director to win the Oscar in this category, a category that it's open to men and women. My intention is not to discuss the history of the Oscar and the gender disparities that exist in this acclaimed film award, but to just illustrate why we need to continue talking about gender inequality and the lack of opportunities for women. And not just in filming, obviously, but in all spheres of society. So I would like to briefly take a look at a report done by the British newspaper, The Guardian, in 2020, which is still very relevant. The figures are from last year, but it wouldn't change that much to this year's. Okay, so I hope everyone is seeing my screen and that you can see yes, the article. So I like this article because it's a little bit of it's interactive. And here in this graph, what we see is that since 1929, there have been more than 10,000 nominations, overall since the Oscars started. And each of these little dots, yellow dots, represent one of those 10,000 nominations, okay? If we take out the nominations that went for men, those that went for to men and women as part of a team, and those that are only open to women, the inequality between men and women is laid bare. Women represent just 14% of all nominations. So basically we can see that women, or actually, like the dots disappear, only leaving a few dots here representing women. And the award for Best Director is the most prestigious, award open to both men and women. And, it's one of the most prestigious. And since 1929, there have been 449 nominations to Best Director, but only 5 of those have gone to women. And this year, I think there were 2 more, so that will just make it, like 7 or no more than 10. But what it's not alarming, but that we should pay attention to is that of those, up until last year, Catherine Bigelow was the only woman to win this award as Best Director in 2010. In 2021, 11 years later, finally there was another woman, and that was Chloe. Okay. So I wanted to start the conversation talking about the Oscars because it made, the headlines recently, and because it's part of our pop culture. But also because I thought that many of you may have watched it, and that I thought it would make a good example to illustrate why we still need to talk about gender equality. Because what we just saw does not happen only in filming and in these awards or in the media. It happens everywhere, in employment, schools, education, in all spheres. But before we go deeper into the subject of this talk, I want to clarify what I mean when I use the term gender and the term equality. When we talk about gender or gender equality, we immediately tend to think about women only. However, gender does not only refers to females, it also includes men. So when I talk or we talk here about gender equality, we're talking about equality both for men and women, okay? And in regards to equality, we can't deny that there are physiological differences between men and women. But what I'm referring to here is to equal rights and opportunities to access resources such as education, a well-paid job, money, or technology. Okay, equal opportunities to participate in society and make decisions, especially when it may affect or impact women. That is the kind of equality that I will be referring to. Okay, so in the 60 minutes or so that we're going to be sharing today, I want to talk about 3 things. Briefly, I want to talk about Peace Corps, which is the organization that I work for, and its approach to gender and development. Secondly, the importance of continuing to talk about gender equality and the need to create more awareness. And third, to share why gender equality is good for everyone, including men. Okay. At the end of the session, I'm going to paste in the chat box the links to all the resources and the materials that I will be making reference to, so that you can read them or watch them on your own later on. But if I forget to do that, please, someone or Lara, could you please remind me to do that so that
Sure.
my promise is not in vain. Okay. So, as Laura said in my introduction, I've been working for the Peace Corps for the last 7 years. And Peace Corps is an independent agency of the United States government. It was founded in 1961 by President John F. Kennedy. And since its foundation, our mission and goals have remained the same. To promote world peace and friendship through the collaboration of trained volunteer men and women, and promote a better understanding of each other's culture and values. Volunteers have served in over 140 countries, contributing to meet the needs of the communities in which they live and work, providing assistance and building capacity in one of the 6 sectors that we focus in: education, environment, agriculture, community economic development, health, and youth in development. Now, Peace Corps Mexico started its operations in 2003, so not too long ago. And we received the first group of volunteers in 2004. Since then, Peace Corps Mexico has collaborated with the Semarnat, CONAFOR, CONAM, CONACYT, and public universities such as the Autonomous University of the state of Hidalgo. So there have been a few volunteers working there. So some of you may have had the opportunity to meet them and interact with them. So since 1974, Peace Corps programming, so all our projects and how we do business per se, has been making efforts to better serve women and girls while carrying out our development work. Currently, Peace Corps applies a gender and development approach which emphasizes the importance of including all members of a community to achieve sustainable development. So we strive to involve men, women, boys, girls, all of the community members. And this approach analyzes gender, sex, and gender roles and recognizes that men and women have different life courses and roles. The work of our volunteers here in Mexico reflect this approach because we prepare them to first observe and learn what are the cultural norms or the expectations, and to use the tools that will help them understand who does what, who has access to what resources, and who controls or make decisions about those resources. This analysis or this approach informs the volunteers about the community's priorities and helps them integrate gender considerations into their project planning and implementation. Okay, so if you will, I'm not going to go any further with talking about Peace Corps, but if you want to learn more about Peace Corps and Peace Corps Mexico, you can visit our web pages and also follow us on our Facebook page, which I will share also at the end of those links. Okay. All right. Now to transition into the importance or, like the focus of this talk about gender equality and how it is good for everyone, I would like to share a portion of a TED Talk given in 2012 by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, titled "We Should All Be Feminist." I encourage all of you to watch it later in its entirety. She has a very humorous way of telling her stories, and she raises many points about how culturally accepted gender roles harm both girls and boys and what we could do differently. So right now, we're gonna just watch a little brief portion of it. Let's hope this works.
Childhood. When I was in primary school, my teacher said at the beginning of term that she would give the class a test, and whoever got the highest score would be the class monitor. Now, class monitor was a big deal. If you were a class monitor, you got to write down the names of noisemakers, which was heady enough power on its own. But my teacher would also give you a cane to hold in your hand while you walked around and patrolled the class for noisemakers. Now, of course, you were not actually allowed to use the cane. But it was an exciting prospect for the 9-year-old me. I very much wanted to be the class monitor, and I got the highest score on the test. Then, to my surprise, my teacher said that the monitor had to be a boy. She had forgotten to make that clear earlier because she assumed it was obvious. A boy had the second highest score on the test, and he would be monitor. Now, what was even more interesting about this is that the boy was a sweet, gentle soul who had no interest in patrolling the class with a cane, while I was full of ambition to do so. But I was female, and he was male, and so he became the class monitor. And I've never forgotten that incident. I often make the mistake of thinking that something that is obvious to me is just as obvious to everyone else. Now, take my dear friend Louis, for example. Louis is a brilliant progressive man, and we would have conversations, and he would tell me, I don't know what you mean by things being different or harder for women. Maybe in the past, but not now. And I didn't understand how Louis could not see what seemed so self-evident. Then one evening in Lagos, Louis and I went out with friends. And for people here who are familiar with Lagos, there's that wonderful Lagos fixture, the sprinkling of energetic men who hang around outside establishments and very dramatically help you park your car. I was impressed with the particular theatrics of the man who found us a parking spot that evening. And so as we were leaving, I decided to give him a tip. I opened my bag, put my hand inside my bag, brought out my money that I had earned from doing my work, and I gave it to the man. And he, this man who was very grateful and very happy, took the money from me, looked across at Louis, and said, "Thank you, sir." Louis looked at me, surprised, and asked, "Why is he thanking me? I didn't give him the money." Then I saw realization dawn on Louis's face. The man believed that whatever money I had ultimately come from Louis, because Louis is a man. Now, men and women are different. We have different hormones, we have different sexual organs, we have different biological abilities. Women can have babies, men can't. At least not yet. Men have testosterone and are, in general, physically stronger than women. There's slightly more women than men in the world. About 52% of the world's population is female. But most of the positions of power and prestige are occupied by men. The late Kenyan Nobel Peace Laureate, Wangari Maathai, put it simply and well when she said, "The higher you go, the fewer women there are." In the recent US elections, we kept hearing of the Lilly Ledbetter Law. And if we go beyond the nicely alliterative name of that law, it was really about a man and a woman doing the same job, being equally qualified, and the man being paid more because he's a man. So in a literal way, men rule the world. And this made sense 1,000 years ago. Because human beings lived then in a world in which physical strength was the most important attribute for survival. The physically stronger person was more likely to lead. And men in general are physically stronger. Of course, there are many exceptions. But today we live in a vastly different world. The person more likely to lead is not the physically stronger person. It is the more creative person, the more intelligent person, the more innovative person. And there are no hormones for those attributes. A man is as likely as a woman to be intelligent, to be creative, to be innovative. We have evolved, but it seems to me that our ideas of gender have not evolved. Some weeks ago, I walked into the lobby of one of the best Nigerian hotels. I thought about naming the hotel, but I thought I probably shouldn't. And a guard at the entrance stopped me and asked me annoying questions. Because the automatic assumption is that a Nigerian female walking into a hotel alone is a sex worker. And by the way, why do these hotels focus on the ostensible supply rather than the demand for sex workers? In Lagos, I cannot go alone into many reputable bars and clubs. They just don't let you in if you're a woman alone. You have to be accompanied by a man. Each time I walk into a Nigerian restaurant with a man, the waiter greets the man and ignores me. The waiters are products. And there's some women who are like, yes, I found that. The waiters are products of a society that has taught them that men are more important than women. And I know the waiters don't intend any harm, but it is one thing to know intellectually and quite another to feel it emotionally. Each time they ignore me, I feel invisible. I feel upset. I want to tell them that I am just as human as the man, that I am just as worthy of acknowledgement. These are little things, but sometimes it's the little things that sting the most. Now, not long ago, I wrote an article about what it means.
Okay. I think we can stop here. Again, I'll recommend that you watch this video in its entirety later, because she has really great reflections. But for now, I would like to open the floor. Feel free to open your microphones or to type it in the chat box. I would like to hear some of your reactions about what you just heard. If it relates to you, if you identify with it, if you have seen it, if you have experienced it, or what do you think about Chimamanda's experience?
Well, I think I can share with you that I have had mixed feelings when it comes to genders and this, well, especially not a lot in English, but in Spanish, this, you know, like the differences when you say the female noun or the male noun, and how, you know, like all these considerations that are now in use. I haven't been discriminated against, and I think that's the reason why I'm fortunate enough, right? Because I haven't gone through something so serious and so evil. I haven't. But on Wednesday, we were talking about the power, no, on Tuesday, the power of words and how much we have to contribute, even though we are not being discriminated against. We should be aware of the fact that many people, many women around the world are living the same thing this woman is describing. So if you think about some countries in Africa or the Middle East, and even in Mexico, in some states, there will be one person, one woman who is suffering from this. And we should be thinking about how to contribute and how to make this world different step by step, so that, you know, like, it's not that all of us want to be the same. We have our differences. That's why there are men and women. But in terms of rights, we should have those rights, not privileges, rights. And we almost have the same rights. So I have been, and I must confess, I was having like some kind of comments that were negative in terms of, I don't think feminism is a good movement. I used to think that, but now I have changed my mind, and I have thought how unfair it is that many women are living this. And it is unfair. And I was actually watching the Oscars, and I don't remember a person who won and mentioned like all the background, all the history, thanking all people that were fighting for them to be there.
Mm.
And it was just like, wow, that really moved me. And she was talking about people, Black people, who were fighting in the past because they didn't have the right to be educated. They didn't have the right to go to university. And if you were a Black woman, well, your situation was worse. And she was really moved. And that speech moved me too. So I'm now changing my mind, and I feel very bad about those thoughts that I had, because I was very selfish. I was just thinking about that I haven't been discriminated against, but many people are being. So we need to do something and to contribute to this fight every day.
Thank you, Laura. Is there anyone else who would like to comment or share something in the chat?
In my opinion, the women have always fought because they take use the same as men for many years, and they fight for that. Although we still have many things to argue. I think for the women who fought for many years, we are the women of today. And even thanks to them, we are now in school studying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
We also have a comment from Maria de Los Angeles. She
Mhm.
says, excellent conference. Gender equity is an indispensable factor in society for its healthy coexistence. I suffered something similar in a musical contest in which, for being a man, they gave him extra points in areas where he had done better than me for being a woman.
Mm. Great, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing all of this. And what you let us describe, yes, many of us may have been a privileged position where we haven't necessarily
Okay.
experienced this kind of discrimination. But if we look even in, in our families, the gender roles that are present
Definitely.
in our culture, encourage or foster these differences. I, even with the work that I do and being open and having a great relationship with my family, I still see it. Every Sunday we get together at my grandmother's house, and all the women help set up the table,
Mhm.
cook, wash the dishes, and do all that.
And
And
it's
I mean,
natural.
and we're the majority of us are female in my family, but then the men, I mean, they're great guys, but they don't participate, they don't share the responsibility, and it's not even their fault. It's how the dynamics continue to work, right? So even sometimes if they want to, they might be frowned upon, because like that's not your place. That should, the female should do that. Okay, so let's continue talking, and also that's one of the intentions with this talk, and I think with the whole the language and culture fest talking about gender, is that we need to continue talking about it to raise awareness so that we see what is happening, and for all of us, men and women, raise our voices and do something about it. And I'm not gonna go into talking about feminism, but at the end there will be just a little bit that may continue changing your mind, Laura. So let's continue. Let's move on. Thank you everyone for sharing that. And well, if you have attended or watched some of the other conferences given throughout the week as part of the Language and Culture Fest, you probably have heard how our societies, our political and economic systems, and even our languages have for centuries fostered gender inequalities, creating a gender gap and gender disparities in all social spheres, such as in political representation, company board membership, and salaries, in the number of female graduates in STEM fields. And that's just to mention a few. Um, Yesterday, I was listening to Anne Cairns, as the MasterCard's executive vice chair, being interviewed by the Washington Post about the gender imbalance in what is called the C-suite. That refers to the higher level leadership positions, such as a CEO, the CFO, which is a chief financial officer. The CEO is a chief executive officer. The CMO is the chief marketing officer. And that's why it's called the C-suite, because all those positions start with a C, it's a chief. And so what she pointed out is that only 37 of the Fortune 500 companies are led by women. So there are these 500 companies with the biggest or largest companies and fortunes, and only 37 of those are led by women. Um, she also said that in order to change this, companies need to level the playing field and look beyond gender traits and focus more on people's abilities and potential. So there is a lot of disparities, there is a lot of inequalities still out there. And there are little things that people and organizations are doing to try to compensate for that. But the reality is that we have a long way to go. And we can look at the World Economic Forum. Each almost every year publish a global gender gap report. I will share also the link. The report for 2021, it's available. It's already available in the webpage. And some of the key findings in this year's report are as follow. Gender gaps in income persist and are underpinned by women in low-paid jobs and more men in high-paid jobs. So basically, men are still earning more money than women for women are being able to access jobs that are less well paid than men. And then the average income earned by men, it is higher, almost for about 40% more than what women earn. And this is a global report. So if you want, you can go into the report and try to find the data for Latin America or for Mexico specifically. Here's just the global numbers. Then also what they looked at is the gender gap in emerging jobs, those new jobs with the technology and all that, and how much access or what's the percentage of participation of women in these emerging jobs. And for marketing, only 44% of women have a position in marketing, 32% in data and artificial intelligence, 20% of in engineering, and that was really surprising to me because engineering has been present for like so many years, and we often hear women going into engineering careers, but it's still only 20% of female holding jobs in engineering. And cloud computing, which is now very popular, it's only 14% of women involved in this. So there's still a huge gap in employment and female participation. In leadership roles in politics, women in Congress represent only 26%, and leading a state ministry, it's only 23%. Women hired into senior management positions decrease compared from last year. So in some areas we may be going up a little bit, but in some others we're going backwards. And this year, I found it very interesting also in that report that this year they included information on how the pandemic affected differently men and women, finding that women are experiencing more anxiety and lower productivity than men. And they compare also women with children or without children, and men with children and without children. So I also encourage you to take a look at that report. But why should we strive then for gender equality? If we see, how big the gap is, should we even strive for it? Should we care? And to me, the answer is very, very simple. As stated by the United Nations in their webpage, women and girls represent half of the world's population and therefore also half of its potential. Gender equality, besides being a fundamental human right, is essential to achieve peaceful societies with full human potential and sustainable development. Moreover, it has been shown shown that empowering women spurs productivity and economic growth. So yes, promoting and achieving gender equality will benefit women, but it will also benefit men. Men are also affected in negative ways by gender role expectations and stereotypes. We teach boys that they need to be strong, that they should never cry or show their feelings, that they need to behave as a like in a macho way to prove their masculinity. If they want to pursue a career in nursing, hairstyling, or ballet, it's really not well accepted. If a man chooses to stay at home and be the primary caregiver for the children, he is looked down by his peers, depriving him of the joy to do that. In many countries, paternity leave is not an option for men. So only the women get maternity leave. And so they get to care for their newborn baby, but not men. So it is also, this inequality is affecting greatly men. And because I am not a subject expert, I would like to share with you another TED Talk given by someone more knowledgeable and with more experience than I have. Um, Michael Kimmel is a sociologist specializing in gender studies, and he makes the case for treating men and women equally in the workplace and at home is a win-win situation, resulting in more opportunities and happier lives for men and women. So we're gonna watch also another tech talk. Again, we're just gonna watch the last half of the talk, but I encourage you to watch the whole thing.
Should we support gender equality? Of course, it's fair, it's right, and it's just. But more than that, gender equality is also in our interest as men. If you listen to what men say about what they want in their lives, gender equality is actually a way for us to get the lives we want to live. Gender equality is good for countries. It turns out, according to most studies, it turns out that those countries that are the most gender equal are also the countries that score highest on the happiness scale. And that's not just because they're all in Europe. Even within Europe, those countries that are more gender equal also have the highest levels of happiness. It is also good for companies. Research by Catalyst and others has shown conclusively that the more gender equal companies are, the better it is for workers, the happier their labor force is. They have lower job turnover, they have lower levels of attrition, they have an easier time recruiting, they have higher rates of retention, higher job satisfaction, higher rates of productivity. So the question that I'm often asked in companies is, boy, this gender equality thing, that's really going to be expensive, huh? And I say, oh no. In fact, what you have to start calculating is how much gender inequality is already costing you. It is extremely expensive. So it is good for business. And the other thing is, it's good for men. It is good for the kind of lives we want to live. Because young men, especially, have changed enormously. And they want to have lives that are animated by terrific relationships with their children. They expect their partners, their spouses, their wives to work outside the home and be just as committed to their careers as they are. I was talking, give you an illustration of this change. Some of you may remember this. When I was a lot younger, I remember there was a riddle that was posed to us. And some of you may wince to remember this riddle. This riddle went something like this. A man and his son are driving on the freeway, and they're in a terrible accident, and the father is killed. And the son is brought to the hospital emergency room. And as they're bringing the son into the hospital emergency room attending physician sees the boy and says, "Oh, I can't treat him, that's my son." How is this possible? We were flummoxed by this. We could not figure this out. Well, I decided to do a little experiment with my 16-year-old son. He had a bunch of his friends hanging out at the house watching a game on TV recently. So I decided I would pose this riddle to them just to gauge the level of change. Well, 16-year-old boys, they immediately turned to me and said, it's his mom, right? No problem, just like that. Except for my son who said, well, he could have two dads. That's an index, an indicator of how things have changed. Younger men today expect to be able to balance work and family. They want dual career couples. They want to be able to balance work and family with their partners. They want to be involved fathers. Now, it turns out that the more egalitarian our relationships, the happier both partners are. Data from psychologists and sociologists are quite persuasive here. I think we have the persuasive numbers, the data, to prove to men that gender equality is not a zero-sum game, but a win-win. Here's what the data show. Now, when men begin the process of engaging with balancing work and family, we often have two phrases that we use to describe what we do. We pitch in and we help out. And I'm going to propose something a little bit more radical, one word, share. Because here's what the data show. When men share housework and childcare, their children do better in school. Their children have lower rates of absenteeism, higher rates of achievement. They are less likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. They are less likely to see a child psychiatrist. They are less likely to be put on medication. So when men share housework and childcare, their children are happier and healthier. And men want this. When men share housework and childcare, their wives are happier. Well, duh. Not only that, their wives are healthier. Their wives are less likely to see a therapist, less likely to be diagnosed with depression, less likely to be put on medication, more likely to go to the gym. Report higher levels of marital satisfaction. So when men share housework and childcare, their wives are happier and healthier. And men certainly want this as well. When men share housework and childcare, the men are healthier. They smoke less, drink less, take recreational drugs less often. They are less likely to go to the ER, but more likely to go to a doctor for routine screenings. They are less likely to see a therapist, less likely to be diagnosed with depression, less likely to be taking prescription medication. So when men share housework and childcare, the men are happier and healthier. And who wouldn't want that? And finally, when men share housework and childcare, they have more sex. Now, of these four fascinating findings, which one do you think Men's Health magazine put on its cover? Housework makes her horny. Not when she does it. Now, I will say, just to remind the men in the audience, these data were collected over a really long period of time, so I don't want listeners to say, okay, I think I'll do the dishes tonight. These data were collected over a really long period of time. But I think it shows something important. That when Men's Health magazine put it on their cover, they also called it, you'll love this, chore play. So, what we found is something really important, that gender equality is in the interest of countries, of companies, and of men, and their children, and their partners. That gender equality is not a zero-sum game, it's not a win-lose, it is a win-win for everyone. And what we also know is we cannot fully empower women and girls unless we engage boys and men. We know this. And my position is that men need the very things that women have identified that they need to live the lives they say they want to live in order to live the lives that we say we want to live. In 1915, on the eve of one of the great suffrage demonstrations down Fifth Avenue in New York City, a writer in New York wrote an article in a magazine. And the title of the article was Feminism for Men. And this was the first line of that article. Feminism will make it possible for the first time for men to be free. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this talk from Michael Kimmel. And because I want to allow and let time for questions or for people to share your thoughts and your reactions, I would like to conclude and summarize what I have been sharing with you this afternoon. Is that we need to continue talking about gender equality to create more awareness, to make more visible the negative effects of visible the negative effects genderization has on both men and women. Our cultures are changing, but there is still much more to discuss and to do to break oppressing gender roles and stereotypes. And we need more feminists. I like how Doctora Maria del Carmen Cabeza, a presenter here in the Language and Culture Fest, she defined feminism as to believe that we are all equal and defend this principle. That's what it means to be a feminist. So I would like to invite all of you to become feminists, happy feminists, to strive and to become allies to one another and to look for gender equality, but not just for women, but for men, women, girls, and boys, so that we will live in a much better place. So thank you very much for your attention. I would like to open out the floor for your questions or for your reactions. Also, if anyone would like to share in ways that you maybe have experienced some of these inequalities, or ways in which in your day-to-day you think you can have these conversations or do something in a different way that it will, challenge those stereotypes and the gender roles that we live in our daily lives.
Thank you, Ms. Cabero. I would like to share one comment from one of our students in CIMAPAN. She says, well, I was asking, I asked her about her opinion about feminism and if she would call herself a feminist. And she says, no, that doesn't represent me because I do not agree with most of its ideas, but I know that women should be respected. So if you think that, I think you're a feminist. We all should be. We have a question from Ms. Luna. Let me see if I find it. Yes. How can Mexican female politicians be respected just like Kamala Harris?
Sorry, how are like Mexican politicians can be respected? Is that the question?
Yes, how can they be respected the same way Kamala Harris is?
In my opinion, it starts with oneself. If we value ourselves, if we believe in our abilities and our capacities, that will be the first step. And also, what we need again is more allies. So if there are more men in these higher positions who will become allies to female politicians and start respecting them, showing respect to them, acknowledging them, and also, telling on their colleagues, when they make offensive comments or when they ignore them, that would be great. Now, how many of these men in these positions would do that? I don't know. I think it starts with, again, creating awareness, with education, educating the young people,
Yes, a word.
you guys at a university, college, soon you will be living and getting jobs. So if you start being part of this change, maybe the women right now who are in this position may still have to work a lot harder and may not be as respected, but someday, maybe in 2, 5, 10 years, things will change if young people like you start creating this change.
Definitely, I agree with that. We do have another question from Crystal Gonzalez. If I could say that gender equality is the way to happiness, how can what can I do to leave behind the labels of society?
Excellent question. It is difficult. It's not an easy thing to do, to try to go against what society is telling us, that we need to behave in the way that we need to dress. It is hard. What can you do? I think you are the best person to ask, to answer this question, is what or how much are you willing to give up, and how much of that risk are you willing to take? And sometimes we don't need to make these incredible changes, like creating this huge movement. It's maybe it starts, with your family. If you start having these conversations with your family, with your brothers and sisters, and challenging them also, I think that's where it starts. It's not gonna be easy, and we need to challenge our society, and also like what you value. If you are one of those guys that you respect your mother, your sister, and maybe your girlfriend, and you are the kind of guy that washes the dishes and does the cooking, uh, feel proud about it and even talk about it. And if you are bullied or harassed for that, don't give up. Continue doing that and find other people who are also thinking and behaving the way that you are. And so you will create this support network to do it.
Yeah, definitely. What you said, Ms. Cabero, about your grandmom's house, when, like they see how natural it is that women are serving and putting the plates and doing the cooking, and men are just seated, and that's natural. And I remember that my grandmother used to say, Laura, could you please ask your brother what he wants, if he needs something, if whatever. And that was super natural. So yeah, I think that many people have heard, we have heard that if we want to change the world, we have to start at home. So with our family, with our relatives, and like without giving up, as you have said, because there are some people who are going to say something against us or bully us or something, but we shouldn't give up, definitely. Joel Enriquez says that this has been an excellent conference. I think gender equality must be achieved for our society to start evolving. We should be mindful of the challenges facing people of all gender identities and be part of a generation that promotes equality for all. I think that was a very good comment.
Thank you. I second that.
Yes, we do, definitely. Well, I think we don't have any other questions. Thank you indeed. It has been a personal honor and an honor for this Language Center to have you here, Ms. Paola Cabero Ireta. We appreciate everything you shared with us this afternoon. And well, we can conclude that feminism is the fight for being equally treated, like the same right to decide how to be happy in this life. So it doesn't matter that we are not going through those situations, but we have to fight for the same rights for everyone. So thank you very much. Thank you, students, teachers, everyone who have been with us, and Ms. Cabero, our love and gratitude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I have posted in the chat box the resources. So if you want to copy and paste someplace so that you can access them after the the session, that will be great. And well, I hope you guys copy my contact information. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take
It's a
care.
pleasure.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Cabero. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye. Thank you.